Hey, Rachel Smith, thank you for joining us here on Yellow Shelf today. It is so good to talk to you. You are the co-host of the Content Byte podcast. Welcome.
Thank you, Joanna. I'm really happy to be here. I'm one of your subscribers, so it's very exciting.
Yay. Yay, yay,
Yeah.
yay. Well, that's pretty special because I'm a listener to your podcast. I like what you do, so it is great to chat. You know this space pretty well with your co-host, Lynne. You've been
Yeah.
at podcasting now for, well, since
Like
2019.
5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've
Coming
got
up
more
to
than
5 years.
180 episodes in the
Yeah.
vault.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to hand over to you. What do we need to know about the Content Byte? Please feel free to share because it's definitely a listening platform for me.
Yeah. It's interesting, when you asked me to be on the podcast, I went back and read some of our emails from, at the beginning,
Yeah.
just to remember what it was like actually coming up with the concept and actually moving forward with it and all of that. And it was a really nice trip down memory lane for me because you're right. I think we're at nearly up to 190 episodes, which is very cool. And the whole concept, the content bite, was we thought, right, we're just going to make it really short and snappy and have these 10-minute episodes that are really useful. And, hence the sort of bite-sized nature of the content that we wanted to put out there. But that just all changed radically when we started getting guests because we very quickly realized we actually need other voices and we want to bring other people in. And so after about, I think it was probably about 6 months, we thought, right, let's start to bring other people in. And that's when it really grew because as we've talked about offline, you loop people in, they share you with their networks, it just grows more, other people pitch you to come on. And it's just this amazing ecosystem that you start to build. And it's a really fantastic marketing tool. So I'll talk a bit about that a bit later. But in terms of guests, it's really cool. Like we've had, best-selling authors, we've had content agency owners, magazine editors, copywriters, journalists of all kinds. We've had email marketers and other fellow podcasters and so many different people. But the thread is really like these people either have a really cool career story or something to teach us. So our tagline is we're for freelancers who use their words to make money. So while a lot of our guests are writers and also do that, there are others that will teach our audience about something they don't know that can help them build that thriving freelance business. Yeah. So we feel like, the philosophy behind it was really to ensure that every episode, brings that value and those little nuggets of gold and that our listeners are learning something and they want to grab a piece of paper and take notes, but often they're out walking the dog. So they're like, damn it, I'll just have to go back and,
Let's listen
listen to
again.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we really wanted I know you're a listener. And so you probably see that, we don't have any fluff. We kind of,
Yes.
you have the preamble of our sponsors rounded and a few
Yep.
other messages, and then we're straight bang into it. We do a very short intro and then it's straight into the guest, and we try and get straight to the helpful stuff. So we really try and tap into those people's experience and expertise. And yeah, it's interesting. We want to talk about the hard bits that they've encountered along their journey. How they find work is really interesting to our audience, as is the money stuff, like what do they charge? How do they charge? How have they accelerated their earnings?
Yeah.
How do they manage difficult situations, clients or editors, their favorite tools of the trade, all of that sort of thing. And we do script the episodes.
Yep.
As journalists, we're really into, you know, writing really thoughtful questions. Our episodes are quite long. They're about 40 to 50 minutes. And we give the questions to the guest because a lot of
Yeah.
people get nervous
Yeah.
or they just want to be able to prepare and come up with, really good answers and interesting answers. So yeah, so that's really the crux of it all.
And
Yeah.
oh my God, that's so bang on. That was a great way to describe your podcast. So tell me, what inspired you to start the show, Rachel? And maybe talk about your background and your career journey, because that's pretty interesting as well, or even Lynn's. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's really interesting. I have talked about this a little bit on the show because Lynne Testoni, she's my podcast co-host. We were longtime friends and I'd also written for her on various magazines. So she was my editor from time to
Sure.
time. And she sort of floated the idea with me because at the time there was like a few really amazing writer podcasts out there, but they typically focused on one type of writing. And so we really toyed with the idea of starting a podcast that would serve the types of writers that we knew in the Rachel's List community. So in just winding back a little bit, I, am a journalist and a copywriter, and I also run a business called Rachel's List, which is a jobs board and a community for other writers, for a multitude of writers and creatives. And so while the Content Byte is a separate business, it is sort of Rachel's List's podcast.
Sure.
And Lynne is separate, so it's kind of a weird thing. And it's grown other businesses as well, which we'll talk about, the summit and everything. But yeah, so we wanted to, bring in those journos who might be moving from media into content or media into copywriting, because that's such a big journey. And, if you've been in-house forever and you're suddenly redundant and you're trying to create a business, you don't know where to start. So, we wanted to help those people because we've made that journey as well, and our careers have evolved into content and copy and that sort of thing. So we wanted to really create, episodes that helped those people, transitioning in their careers, and also help freelance copywriters or content specialists who, needed information about things like creating systems or, knowing what to charge or how to find clients. So they're themes that we talk about over and over in different ways.
Yep.
And because we couldn't find that specific thing that zeroed in on those journalists, copywriters, content specialists, and how those kind of intersect, we decided to create our own. But I will say, full disclosure, I have to do a big shout out to Lynne, because she has been the driving force, not only in us starting the podcast, but also in how it's evolved into the Content Byte Summit. Yeah, so we both freelance full time, and I'm always completely overloaded. And she's been like, right, we're doing this.
Yeah.
She's very persuasive and really good at pushing me out of my comfort zone. And it really has been the best thing for our businesses, for Rachel's List, for brand awareness. And it's really fun as well. I've expanded my network exponentially, met so many amazing people. It's been a really good adventure. Yeah, and it has evolved, as I mentioned, into this conference.
I know. And speaking of that comes up in September?
It's in September, and it's in the second year now. It's essentially an extension of the podcast, and it's sort of trying to bring, those smartest minds in journalism and content and copywriting into the room, into the theatre of the Maritime Museum, for 2 days of really nonstop learning. And we had such epic feedback from the last one that we thought, all right, we'll do it again.
Yeah.
It is a huge, enormous amount of work, but it's really cool. It's kind of cool to piggyback a conference on a podcast. And that has been a whole other, learning journey for us. So it's been good.
Yeah, awesome. And look, what's the best way to connect with you, to connect with the Content Byte, connect with Lynne, or find out about the summit, the conference? So I'll put all this in our show notes, but Rachel, let us know, how do we connect?
Okay, absolutely. Look, if somebody, we're very active on Instagram mainly. So that's just the content, _content_byte. Didn't think that one through. Didn't create it soon enough. And then our website is thecontentbyte.com. The conference is thecontentbytesummit.com.au. If you want to post a job on Rachel's List or join up as a writer, we're always looking for fantastic writers to join our membership, and we have an entry-level newsletter. That's rachelslist.com.au. And we have a really popular newsletter called The Wrap Up as well. So I'll give you the link to that. And that's open to everybody. So everyone can sort of join that. And if you want to connect with me personally, I'm at rachelsmith.com.au.
Awesome. Rachel,
that's a lot of links.
I'm gonna have a nice big show note, but that's okay. It makes it so much easier to connect, particularly if we're curious. Rachel, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a blast.
We'll find another time to do it again, I'm sure.
Okay. Thanks, Joanna.
Rachel.